Hey, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Peace Podcast. This one is just give me emotional intelligence, whatever that looks like. And so I landed on this one because I have this uncanny need to always understand people's why. And when I'm listening to conversations or even when I'm talking to friends, like I always want to know, why is somebody reacting this way? Why is somebody expending this much energy on this thing? And I sat with that for a little bit and I thought, when before I delved into emotional intelligence and just really like knowing about what it was and how it makes you respond differently in the world, I probably reacted that same way. And so I remember when I was going through a custody battle with one of my children. Um, I share personal stories just so you know. This isn't just me standing on a soapbox saying, this is what you should do. This is me sharing my personal account with you guys just because I really, truly, and honestly have a passion for making sure that other people have the knowledge that they need to not go through the experiences that I've gone through. If I can save just one person from dealing with the turmoil and angst that I had to deal with when I was going through these situations in an unhealed version of myself, like I will do this, record these videos a million times in an effort to make sure that doesn't happen for someone else. And to add to that, this other layer, which was, I remember when I was going through these situations, thirsting for that information, thirsting for just a knowing. Like, I want to understand why I'm reacting this way, why this person is treating me this way. And when I did that, the more information I got, the more apt I was to be able to walk differently. And so, this is me giving you the information that I learned to hopefully help you to move in the world a little differently and to absorb and be able to sit in a space of peace while you're doing it. Mine wasn't so peaceful and still isn't at times, but I learned how to incorporate that inner peace so that the external couldn't affect me as much as it had been. So when I was going through that custody battle, in the initial stages of it, this man could tell me anything and I would believe it. Like, he would tell me that I was a bad mom and I would believe it. I would spin my wheels to make sure that he thought that I was a good mom. And it wasn't until a moment when I realized I don't even really respect this person as an individual because of how cruel they are to other people. So, why am I allowing their opinion of me to dictate how I move in the world and what I think about myself? And so, there was this portion in the process where, he was reaching out to old relationship partners and he was telling them things about me to the point where even some people who knew me were believing the things that he was saying. He would reach out to my other child's parent and step parent and he would say certain things about them, and unbeknownst to them, he had a motive behind it. He was picking pieces of the things that they were saying in an effort to use them to manipulate me. So if they would say things like, well, Carrie just sees the world in rainbows, unicorn, and sunshine, which is probably true, he would bring that back later and use it to say that I was delusional and that I don't see the world as it really exists and that I fake and put a facade over things to make them better than what they actually are. And while portions of that are true, in context, that's not really what they were saying, and he was using it in an effort to manipulate me. And we were going through that portion where he was reaching out to old partners and where he was even reaching out to people that I was befriending in the current stages. He would say the most horrific things about me that weren't true. And because of the level of emotional intelligence that I didn't have, I would believe the things that he was saying and also not only just believe them, but spend my life trying to prove that those things weren't true. And when I sit and look at it now, I think about the things that he was saying, and I know that those things have never been true. they weren't true when he was saying them. They've never been true about me as a person. And I also can sit and say, even if they were, it has no bearing on my character and me as a person, because those things that did happen, the pieces of truth that he did incorporate into his narrative, were things that were so far in the past that they weren't even who I was anymore. And so I made it part of my journey to develop this emotional intelligence so that nobody could speak something into me and cause a reaction in me that I wasn't co-signing for, right? And so I knew that I was in control and that I had the ability and the power to say, I don't receive that. And so I thought, maybe somebody needs to hear that today. And if you're one of those people, I completely understand feeling like you need to continue to act in the role that you've always played with that person, which is allowing them to tell you things about yourself, proving them wrong, telling them that it's not true, and then spinning your wheels to make sure that you're living a life that is in alignment with proving that they're wrong. And something that I can tell you over and over again is that alignment doesn't exist when you're aligning yourself with someone who is perpetually trying to make you look bad, feel bad, and seem bad to the world. And so when you're doing all of these things in an effort to make sure that they are not able to create a narrative about you, that they're not able to say the things that they're saying and that others won't believe it because they see the way that you're moving, you're really living your life in order to, and in accordance with what that person is saying are the lies, right? So like you're not living your real truth because you're so focused on disproving the lies that they're telling. And so, what do we need to do to develop some sort of emotional intelligence to be able to combat not what they're saying, but what's happening inside of us emotionally and internally? So, the first one is understanding that you choose your reaction. And I can tell you that this one was probably the most difficult one for me because that reaction was embedded from childhood, right? Even in those childhood years when someone said you are this or you're thinking this or you're acting this way, I made it my mission to react in such a way to prove them wrong, to prove that I was a good girl, to prove that I was smart, to prove that I was capable, right? And when you have that habit living inside of you and it is attached to those core beliefs and those core wounds, it's like if someone says this about me, then I know this is my reaction. This is the way that I need to react. When you have that living inside of you, it's really hard to flip it around and do something different because it's a habit at that point. But you choose your reaction. You can ignore when someone is saying untruths about you and know that the person who's saying the untruth can believe whatever they want. And that if anyone else believes what they say to be true, then those people don't belong in your life anyway. And so it's a really good way to sift out the people who aren't really for you and who aren't in alignment with you and who shouldn't be in your circle. So if someone's going around spreading rumors or trying a smear campaign with you, and there are people who are in your world that are jumping on that bandwagon, guess what you just did? You just filtered out people who no longer should be in your space. And if you react, if you respond in your normal habit, you're giving them exactly what they're trying to get from you. A person who is toxic in your life, like they just want a reaction. They really don't care what that reaction is. They just want a reaction. So if it's you yelling, there's a reaction. That's what they're trying to get from you. If it's you trying to explain yourself in a really calm manner, it's still a reaction. And if what they're trying to gain from you is a reaction, which allows them to know that they have control, then you have to take back the power of that dynamic. And the way that you take back that power is to understand that you choose your reaction. This is why people say all the time that the gray rock method is the perfect method to interact with people like this. And it's true in a certain sense, because if you just do nothing, they're getting nothing from you. So they'll stop doing that thing to get their supply. No matter how you react, a reaction is feeding into what they want. So if you want to be a person who's moving in the world in an emotionally intelligent way, you have to tell yourself, I am in control of how I react to this thing. And the way to really get a hone in on and to handle that initial response, because initially you're going to want to pop off at the mouth or like say something to try to disprove them. And again, that's very natural because it is your knee-jerk reaction. It's something that's inside of you from a very early age. To get a handle on that, though, you have to say, okay, nope, I'm going to write down that reaction. I used to have somebody that I would text it to. I would text the response that I really wanted to say in my immediate defense. I would text it to someone else. I would not say it to him because I knew that if I said it to him, that he was going to get exactly what he wanted from me. So I had to be intelligent enough to say, okay, is this a me thing? Is it a him thing? Or is it a situational thing? I know I tell you guys to ask yourself that all the time, but that is 100% how you have to handle this if you really want to control your reaction. If it's a you thing, if it's something that you did, you could very simply just say, I'm sorry, and that be the end of it. If it's a them thing, then you need to make sure that you respond with only facts, no feelings. So if they're accusing you, like given my example, if they're accusing you of doing all of these things that you're not doing, you don't have to respond to that because you don't need to defend yourself. If they're saying, you didn't pack the bag for our kid this weekend and he was supposed to have da 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 da, you can say, I'm sorry, but you're responsible for getting those things yourself. Fact only. Don't include any emotion in there. And that is the external way of choosing your reaction, but the internal way is truly sitting with yourself and saying, who am I and how do I need to respond to this situation? If I no longer want to be under the control of this person who has manipulated me for years, if I no longer want to allow this thing to have control over me, then I need to be able to control the way that I'm responding to it. So you take note of what your initial feeling is. Eventually, you'll stop wanting to respond in that way altogether because you'll have built a habit that says, oh, I just respond in fact when I need to, and I don't respond at all. And if I don't need to respond, and what ends up happening is that's the way you handle your reaction to that person every single time. If you filter it through the lens of what is their motive for acting this way to me? Do they want a reaction? Do they want to make me feel bad about myself? Whatever their motive is, if you filter it through that lens, then you can control the way you respond in a much more controlled way inside of you internally. So if you say, okay, their motive is to get a reaction out of me, I refuse to do that. So my response is going to be none. If you filter it through the lens of, oh, their motive is to make me feel like I'm a bad parent or manipulate me or make me think this thing is true about myself, then my response is only going to be facts to the things that I need to respond to. You have to gain control of your thought process from I need to defend myself so this person doesn't think this way about me to I don't care what they think. I know what their motive is. And so therefore my reaction is going to be from a place of wisdom based on their motive, not based on what my internal instincts tell me to do. And that leads me to the second thing. You have to know their why. Their why is very important when you're taking that aerial view. Someone who does the smear campaign, someone who tries to get your closest people to turn against you, someone who tries to use your child as a pawn against you, their why is a very large factor in the process. And their why is usually to motivate you and to make you miserable. And if you know that, if you're able to assess that, okay, how is this an effort to try to make me miserable? How is this an effort to try to gain their supply from me? How is this an effort for them to get whatever it is that their normal motive is, right? How is this an effort to do that? Once you know that, then you stop responding altogether because you are not an energy source to feed them. And when you know their why, you'll stop responding and reacting like you are. And this is true for things beyond romantic relationships, but I'm using that as an example. So even in your platonic relationships, even in your parental relationships, if you have a parent who is highly manipulative because they're toxic in their covert ways, say that they need you to make them feel emotionally seen. And since you're their child, they can manipulate you into thinking that that's what your goal and your position is in life. If you know that that's their why, your response can be so much less of a reaction and more of a, I know their motive, so here's my plan in that dynamic. So if someone reaches out to you and says, you didn't call me on Sunday and you always call me on Sunday, and I feel like you're not prioritizing me, and you know that they're putting the guilt on real thick, and guilt is something they've always used. You know their why. They're guilting me into feeding some sort of energy into them that they need, and they know that I'm an easy target. If I know that, then my response can be so different. It can be, oh, well, I got busy and I didn't have time. Done. And if they keep trying to lay the guilt, you can say nothing because you've already told them, got busy, couldn't do the phone call. I'm sorry. Just that is what it is. And if you don't know their why, you'll spend your time trying to make them feel better because your internal wants everybody to be happy and everybody to be at peace and doesn't want to be the catalyst of disrupting that. The reality is you never disrupted it in the first place. They're using you as a scapegoat to get those needs met. And if you know what their need is, then you can emotionally process that and say, I'm not willing to be the supply for the need that they have. So therefore, this is how I'm going to respond. It's not easy to process people's why if you don't think the way they do. And I remember asking this question often during that custody battle to my dad, like, why would he act this way? Like, why would someone be so cruel? Why would people act this way? And his words were so powerful. He said, Harry, you have to stop thinking that everybody thinks, acts, and responds in the world like you do. Not everybody has that same thought process. And so he was like, when you keep asking yourself why, you're wanting to understand something that doesn't make sense to you. You can't make logic out of something that is insane to you. So what you need to do is respond in a way that is logical to you. So if you know logically, this person is doing this, I don't know or understand the method behind that madness, but I know that this is their why. So because I know that this is their why, here's what I'm going to do in response to that. I am not going to feed into this cycle of me being guilted, manipulated, or shamed to give them the thing that they want. Because normally, 9 times out of 10, if somebody is purposefully trying to manipulate you or hurt you, it's because there's an unmet need in them that they've unearthed that they're now trying to place the responsibility of onto you. It is not your responsibility to make people feel better about them. It is your responsibility to move in the world in such a way that is authentic to you. So really assess, why are they doing this, and respond accordingly. And the last one is, you have a really, really hard time letting people do what they do and be who they are because you want to see the good in people. You want people to be good. You want people to see you and respond to you in a nice and kind way. And not everybody is like that. Not everybody is out to put good into the world. So instead of trying to change or control the way people act, instead of trying to change or control the way people are, you have to know this is the position they play in my life. Here is the access point that I'm going to give them. And there is going to be no method for me to try to change, shape, or mold them into something different. So if somebody consistently responds in an ugly way to your best efforts, don't try to change what they think about you. Don't try to tell them, but my intention was this, and continue to try to talk your way into good standing with them, because they are keenly and perpetually focused on seeing the bad in you, because that's what they do to themselves. You're not going to change the way people are and the way people move in this world. And I can tell you from personal experience, if I could change the way this person is and the way he moves in this world, I would have done it a million times over. But that is not my job, nor can I. He is the only one who can change the way he moves and is in this world. And so if I continue to try to control that by getting him to see me differently and getting him to understand and getting him to, I mean, I even remember sending a message to him once that said, this doesn't have to be so difficult. We could do this another way. Here's what this would look like if we could cooperate. Just hoping that he would grasp onto the fact that it is in the best interest of our child if we do it this way. And he turned that conversation into an argument because he doesn't want to move in the way that's in the best interest of our child. He wants to move in a way that gives him the power and control that he needs. And so therefore, I have to allow him to move in that space. I have to allow him to be that way because there's nothing I can do to control it. And there's nothing you can do to control it either. Oftentimes we mourn these situations because we just wish that there was something we could do to get our moms to respond the way that we want them to respond. There's something we could do to get our dads to parent us the way that we want them to parent us. There's something we could do to get our grandparents to love us the way that we think grandparents should love us. And there's little to be said when you look on social media, et cetera, about the mourning that happens when you want something so bad, you want to be soft and lean into those experiences, and you will not ever have them with that person. It's not mourning the fact that you don't have a person in that space in your life. It's mourning the fact that even though you do have that person, you're never going to have the relationship that you envision for those two people in your world. So you may have to seek those relationships with other people, develop friendships and relationships with people who can give you those things and who you can feed back into. But you're never going to change that person to operate and move the way that you wish that they would. You are only in control of one person. And if you're thinking about the emotional intelligence that it takes to respond in such a way to know that you're only in control of yourself, you have to understand that it means that you let go of all of these other things that you wish that you could change. And you internalize and you lean into the fact that you're in control of your reaction. You're in control of understanding why people do what they do and moving your reaction accordingly. And you're in control of allowing people to be who they are and do what they do and walking in the world as who you are and doing things in the way that you would do them, regardless of what other people are doing, saying, or being in the world. And so today I encourage you, if you haven't already looked up emotional intelligence, there's tons of articles written, research-based articles written about the subject. I would encourage you to look into it. And I would also encourage you to take these 3 points that I've given, at least for your first 3 steps into your emotional intelligence journey, especially if you're dealing with a toxic person. Your life is not destined to continue to maneuver and operate in a way that makes everyone around you happy to interact with you because you're just cooperating with everyone. You have to understand that sometimes the way that you are and the person that you are will rock other people's boat because they need you to fulfill some sort of void in them. You have to get emotionally intelligent enough to not allow that to bother you to the point where you're walking in the world trying to just please everyone else, but that you're understanding that they are reacting to you and treating you in the way that they're reacting to you and treating you to fulfill something in them. And your only role and responsibility is to act in this world according to your character and who you are. So today I encourage you to really unearth that, really sit with yourself and say, you know what, do I have to respond this way to this person? Do I need to even respond at all? And if the answer to that is no, then don't do it. Spend your time cultivating and becoming a better version of you that's not contingent upon what they think about you. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to go like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Write a review for this podcast on all podcast platforms. That really helps to get the word out to other people. If you haven't already, go purchase either for yourself or someone that you know who is going through a healing journey. Go purchase my book, Poems to Heal the Dead Things. It's on Amazon, and the links are in my bio on social media. Speaking of social media, if you don't already follow me, go to my social media platforms and subscribe to those as well. And if you haven't already subscribed to get the blog every Wednesday, go to my website, carrienicole.com, to get those blogs. They come out every Wednesday, and to go on to that platform and just see how you can get me to come speak at an event or how you can work with me directly. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next week.